And that's because the owner of the car is about 80 pounds heavier than he is. So didn't have to worry about ballast as much, but it was a heck of a drive for Morgan. There's a video of him online making up 15 positions in a single lap at 2 mile 10 turn Summit Point. It was a heck of a run. He's turned into a very, very good driver. And just as I say that, he jumps to provisional pole early on here on his first flying lap, putting in a 2:04.48, 28 thousandths of a second clear of season 9 champion Miles Crabb, with Josh Justice now moving up to third here in qualifying. But again, very early on, about a third of the way through qualifying, and these racers, as they're turning 2-minute laps, they're only working their second flying laps at the moment.
I think one of the biggest heavy hitters that have not set a time so far is Megan Overstreet. We saw her have a very big moment there going through the final corner last lap. Saw the front end of her car probably about 10 feet up in the air, so that was a very big hit. But thankfully for her, the iRacing virtual fabricators have been chugging Red Bull ever since they were born, so they were able to get her car repaired very quickly, and she'll be able to set a qualifying time. Certainly a lot of time left for her. I gotta wonder one thing with these spec racer Fords. You see a little bit of it in real life, and we might see it in the sim, is drivers benefiting quite nicely from the slipstream at a track like this, which still have a lot of flat out sections. One big thing as well is trying to maintain that balance of getting a good enough draft going down this very long back straightaway, but also having enough downforce, having enough air on the front end of your car to go through these corners without skating off the track like your tires are made of ice.
Yeah, indeed, to get that front end to bite. And these are not the most aerodynamic cars in the world. Here, Ron, the body shells were designed back in the mid 80s, where these were originally known as Spec Renaults, and obviously enough had a Renault power plant from the Renault Encore and Alliance in them. And then when Renault left the U.S. market, Sports Car Club of America and SCCA Pro went to Ford to see if Ford would help design a drivetrain for them, and they for years had the 1.9 liter iron block motors from the Ford Escort. But these bodies, they look somewhat sleek. They are not the most the most aerodynamic. They also don't generate a ton of downforce, and you'll also notice that little ducktail in the rear does kick some air up, kicks up some dirty air, and it does open up a hole for the driver to behind to be able to draft up to the car ahead. And at a track here like Watkins Glen, that draft, especially going up through the S's, can be very, very strong. And so right now we're watching Andrew Rosencroft in the number 80 machine as he is tucked in behind Morgan Burkhardt and trying to get a tow down the front straight here. And assuming Wozencroft can get a good run through the 90 through turn 1, Ron, I suspect he'll be right back just behind Morgan, going into the bus stop chicane.
I gotta imagine of all the corners on this racetrack, I gotta think turn 1 is definitely the most important, because in these cars you're pretty much flat out from there all the way up until the inner loop, or the bus stop chicane. I always called it the bus stop. It's really called the inner loop, but everyone uses like every chicane, even the final chicane at Spa, people call the bus stop, even though it's not really a bus stop. And it's barely a chicane. It's just basically 2 hairpins duct taped to each other. But going through the inner loop, that's definitely a very important corner, but turn 1 will probably be the most important. It's a decent overtaking opportunity, but you really got to focus on having a great exit out of there, because if you have a bad exit, you got a little bit of slip going through there, have a bit of opposite lock. Yeah, you're definitely going to be in a world of trouble. You might find yourself in a 3 or 4 wide situation, especially if you make a mistake like that on lap 1.
Well, that's right. So now, when we have the 24 hours of Daytona, you get hit with a wet noodle if you refer to the bus stop at Daytona as anything other than the Le Mans chicane now, which is the new official name, and you are looked down upon if you call it anything other than that now, after 30 years of everybody just calling it the bus stop. Here, as we are now 2/3 of the way through qualifying, 10 minutes through this 15-minute qualifying session, Miles Crabb moves to the head of the order. He is your new provisional pole sitter with a qualifying time of 2:04.34, about 14 hundredths of a second clear of Morgan Burkhart. Let's follow Miles here around a little bit as he is working his fourth flying lap. It looks like he's able to get that car to turn in. You know, one of the advantages here, Ron, obviously with the Glen, and one of the reasons why these drivers can carry so much speed here is, with the exception of that slightly off-camber turn 9, most every corner here is very heavily cambered, and just kind of, as long as you can get in the groove and get sucked in, it is a very a track that really just promotes speed in these cars.
It's a driver circuit. It's always fun. I've had plenty of fun driving this track, regardless of whether it's here on the iRacing platform or whether it was on like Forza Motorsports 4 back when I was about 8 years old. I've always had fun driving this track. It's a driver's track, as I said. So it's, as you mentioned, the banked, somewhat cambered in corners. You can carry a lot of speed through. You have a lot of grip, but it's also it's not a very easy track to master. You know, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of it takes balls to push a car to its absolute limit and try and get the most out of it. So it's definitely not the easiest track in the world. You know, we're not driving on like the Daytona Oval, let's just say, where you can just get to the limit pretty easily just by hugging the white line. At this track, you have a lot of easy corners. I wouldn't say it's any easy corners, really. It's definitely easier than they could be, but really the only corners where it's just absolutely a pain in the butt for these drivers is turn 9s. We're seeing Morgan go through there. I've had plenty of incidents coming through there and coming out of it, so that's a very challenging
and it looks
one.
like Charles McCarr almost had one over there as well.
He had a very close call. I think he shaved the tire barrier there, but kept it out for the most part.
That's right. So I was gonna say, for these lower, and there's Morgan rubbing right up against the safer barrier there at the exit of turn 11. Let's see if he can best Crab's time of 2:04.34. He does not improve that last time by, puts in a 2:04.75, which is almost a quarter of a second off of his previous best time. But you know, one of the corners that always sticks out to me, having raced a very low horsepower car at Watkins Glen, and watching these Spec Racer Fords and watching the MX-5s, the Miatas as well, is the toe of the boot, turn 7, which again, very heavily cambered, brings you up a very steep hill. And that is one of those corners where there are a number of different ways to enter it, and there's a definitive groove there if you can get down to the apex. But if you don't, you know, and the car washes a little wide, or you have a little trouble with maybe a little bit extra rotation at the rear of the car, you can lose a ton of time and a ton of speed there, simply because you're at, you know, you didn't carry as much momentum. And it's odd to say, but Watkins Glen is definitely a momentum track. And you know, one of the keys in these lower horsepower cars is just to always keep the wheels rolling. You don't have a lot of hard braking corners here that you have to worry about. And you know, here is he is making his way through that toe of the boot. Josh Justice is. You can see, you know, how much extra pavement you can run if you get the turn in wrong.
Yeah, there's, as you mentioned, there's so many different lines that you could do, and there's no real correct line to go through that corner. Some may prioritize the entry, some may prioritize the exit, some may try and go for a move there. We'll have to wait and see. I think with these cars, I think we'll definitely see overtakes in very odd places. I think we might see some overtakes in the final corner. There's only maybe like 2 corners on this entire track that I could see drivers not peeking a wheel in or looking for a move at least. So I think we'll see some very exciting racing. These Spec Racer Fords have always put on some good shows. The Weekend Warrior series that I did with the Spec Racer Fords, I believe back in season 2 of iRacing earlier this year, was just it was fantastic to look at. The other cars just stuck so close to each other, but that was at a somewhat different track. That was at Road Atlanta, which is a little bit different than Watkins Glen, but they're both still fairly old school American racetracks. And I think the quality of the racing there and the excitement from that series will definitely carry over as we see Megan Overstreet doing a fantastic lap there, very close there to Crab.
Yeah, she puts in a 2:04.43, only 83 thousandths of a second off of Miles Crab, and she did cross the line, I think before the clock hit 15. So I think if she were to push this, she'd have this one last opportunity. But Morgan Burkhardt, his session, I believe, is now done. Of course, Crab has already brought his car back to the pits. Jamison Huffman, currently sitting fourth, is back in the pits as well. And Josh Justice, who's just a bit ahead of Megan Overstreet on track currently. Looks like, well, he just checked out of the session, so looks like he's not going to move any further. Beans Forster just about to finish up his sixth and final lap. And let's see if he improves. Wow. Beans Forster, and we didn't have it on screen, I don't think, but Beans Forster in the number 231 machine just put in the flyer of flyers here, Ron. Turns in a 2:04.17 to move himself up onto the front row. He was sitting eighth, and now he is your pole sitter.
That's not just a good lap, that is a statement right there from Forster. That was a fantastic lap, right under the wire there, does it right at the end of the qualifying session, so he'll line up on the pole for this race.
Yeah, and it looks like Megan Overstreet, we'll see. Let's see if we can check in with Overstreet here, Josh, in the 044 machine. She is still on track, and looks like she is trying to get in that, that last flying lap. There she is, coming out of turn 10 into the final corner, and it looks like she's going to bring the car down the pit lane, I believe. Indeed she does. Yeah, she called that final lap off. And so gonna have our drivers now. I think we've got one driver who's still on track. There he goes. He just went back to the pits. That was Mark Sherman. We should have the starting grid here in just a moment for our very first race of season number 10. I can't believe, you know, I this is my 10th season with the Esports Racing League, and I keep thinking it's 10 years, but it's only been now, I think we're just around three and a half years. And Tim Cox, who is one of our announcers for that Weekend Warriors Spec Racer Ford race, and actually I think a couple of the different Weekend Warrior leagues. It's also run as part of the Ray Esports family. Tim saying that Overstreet had a solid runoffs this weekend and smashed the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors on the podium at every round this season, except for the one that Tim was not there to commentate for. And by the way, Ron, never do a race at Road Atlanta with Tim Cox. He'll have you, there's just one thing he's going to tell you, and he'll have you laughing the entire weekend. But let's do this. Let's run down the starting order for tonight's very first race. You want to take the honor there, Ron, as the new guy?
I think before I get into the starting grid, that advice came a little bit late, because that's the one Spec Racer Ford race I've ever done with Weekend Warriors was at Road Atlanta with Tim Cox. So thank you very much for that very late advice. So anyway, getting to the starting grid, it's Benjamin Forster had a fantastic qualifying time to put it on the pole with Miles Crab alongside the Megan Overstreet and Morgan Burkhardt. Completing the second row, then we have Justin Huffman and then Jamison Huffman. So we've got an all Huffman third row. Then we've got Joshua Justice and Andrew Benet in 7th and 8th. And then rounding out your top 10, we have John Vogel and then Andrew Warzencroft. I'm probably butchering these pronunciations. No, I apologize in advance. So then we have Ethan Oring and then Charlie Vaccaro rounding out your top 10. Vaccaro, my apologies. Let's see, right as I say that, I was doing good with the pronunciations. I immediately go out and butcher one. So we got Charlie Vaccaro in P12. Then we have Skip Rock Jr. in 13th, Murphy Nichols in 14th position. And we have Mark Sherman 15th, Jonathan Murchison in P16. Then we have Buttermore in 17th, Enfinger in 18th, and then we have Trenton Kramer, who did not set a qualifying time. Not sure why that was. He winds up in P19.
Well, I'll tell you why Trenton Kramer didn't set a qualifying time, Ron. It's because he was sitting in the YouTube chat talking about Watkins Glen. So hopefully we'll see. It looks like he's in the session. Looks like he's going to start at the back of the field. So good to see that. But when you talk about like texting and driving, that apparently is Trenton Kramer this weekend. Trenton, a B-Spec racer. Out of Ohio, drives a B-Spec Mini Cooper along with one of our great sponsors, Grass Paddock Motorsports. And looks like Beans Forster trying to get up close and personal with our pace car driver coming out of the S's and into the inner loop. And real quick, Ron, as our drivers are on the pace lap here, I want to quickly mention that in 2 weeks, the Ray Esports Racing League taking it on the road to Virginia International Raceway for the SCCA's National Championship runoffs. And we're actually, next week, we're going to be at Virginia International Raceway in the virtual world as a tune-up for the runoffs. But Ray Esports Racing League will be there. And Wednesday night at the runoffs, that's August 27th, the Ray Esports Racing League, in conjunction with Grass Paddock Motorsports, will be holding a little get together as part of the block party evening, part of the runoffs festivities there. So you can check in with me or check in with Stevie Ray to get more information. We'll be happy to pass it along, but that will be over at Grass Paddock Motorsports Wednesday night, 27th. Also, if you are interested in sponsoring the Ray Esports Racing League, please contact Stevie Ray. You can get a hold of Stevie at rayesportsracing.com. All right, so got that little bit of business out of the way, and the pace car now bringing the field here up through and towards turn 9, and on that front row, Beans Forster with that amazing last lap qualifying run to pip Miles Crabb, who is our season 9 Spec Racer Ford champion. And Megan Overstreet has she's got some chops in Spec Racer Ford, finished 3rd in the championship last season, and I think our season 8 champion Morgan Burkhardt sitting there on row number 2 as well. So this should be one heck of a fight here as the pace car now comes down onto the pit road, turning the field over to Beans Forster in that bright colored number 231 machine. Green flag is in the air, and jumping to the inside is Josh Justice in that blue number 99 machine. He gets around Justin Huffman, pardon me, and he's side by side with Overstreet and Burkhardt going into the 90 as Beans Forster now manages to hold off Crabb as they're coming into the S's, Ron.
Or I saw some 3-wide action as they exited turn 1. That's very close. We might see some more 3-wide action up towards the front. We see Morgan Burkhardt getting really racing. Oh, there's contact there. 3-wide. That's I believe that was Justice there that had a little hip check there into the barrier. He keeps it running, but his Spec Racer Ford might be a little bit sad after that contact. But right now we've got battles all throughout the field. We've got drivers going 2-wide, 3-wide. Oh boy, that was number 89 car there having a wild ride.
Catching the curbing there.
There's a car upside down, I think.
Yeah, Charles Vaccaro goes to the inside. He's going to fall all the way back to the tail end of the field, but moving now up into the lead, Miles Crabb gets around Beans Forster. Forster going to try to go around the outside of turn number 6, set up for an inside move coming down into the toe of the boot. He's got Morgan Burkhardt directly alongside in that green and white number 40 machine as they start to move up the hill. But yeah, it got awfully crowded in the bus stop there, Ron.
Oh, that was absolute carnage. I saw body parts flying all over the place. Race car body parts, not actual body parts. That'd be a lot more concerning than it already was, but still, just absolute chaos there. That's one of the flare-up points we were expecting, to be honest, with how much it bottlenecks there from the very wide back straightaway into the very tight chicane where you have little room for error. If you do have a small little mistake there, it's going to end badly, but now I see Morgan Burkhardt going for the move there on Forster going into turn 9. That's an area you can expect to see some battling on all tonight, and he gets a move done there. He moves up into P2, so I think he might stay where he is for the time being, but I think he's definitely going to try and look to size up a move on Crab for the time being. Crab is going to be a sitting duck as they go down the flat-out blast, exiting turn 1 and going into the inner loop.
All right, so it looks like Mark Sherman was caught up in that incident over at the inner loop. Now, we do give all of our racers a single, in iRacing, what is known as a fast repair. Wow, nice move there. Looks like O-ring gets around Forster's. Let's go back, take a look at this replay here. And this is Charles Vaccaro noseless here as... yeah, here we go. I think we've got it queued up going into the bus stop there. You can see all the machines that got tied up there right at the entrance to the bus stop. And here, let's take a look, one more look going into the bus stop and see what brought this all on. Oh, and that I think was Josh Justice in the number 99 machine that cut from, looked like he might have dropped the wheel Ron over in the grass, driver's left, and brought the car right on over directly to the first apex there at the bus stop.
It's just really unfortunate, and there was a very close call I saw farther in the back right after we cut away from that replay. There was some drivers very close to the outside wall there as they went through the outer loop. That was very close, but still just small little unfortunate incidents with these cars. It's very easy to make a mistake that costs you dearly, and with how tight these packs are, one little mistake from just one driver can result in a multi-car accident that we saw there. That's very tough for those drivers to get caught up in an incident early on, but there's still plenty to play for in this race. We're only 3 minutes in, actually coming up on 4 minutes in to the 20-minute race.
Yeah, these races, they may be short, but they're not that short. As Morgan Burkhardt now gets around Miles Crabb and Skip Brock Jr. in the number 68 machine. He's made up 10 positions so far. He gets around Megan Overstreet down at the heel of the boot to move Brock now up into 3rd position, drop Overstreet back into 4th. And I was saying that one of the things in the Ray Esports Racing League is we do give our racers a single fast repair each race. That means if they have something major happen to the car, they can either get the car towed back to the pits, or if they can limp the car back to the pits, that Red Bull drunk crew that works on the cars in the pit lane, they can affect a repair on that car almost immediately and send it right back out on its way. But you only get one of those per race.
Yeah, the Red Bull crew doing their wonders there to fix these cars very quickly. We're seeing some nice bump drafting here. It's like an old NASCAR race back in like 2011 with a lot of tandem drafting. We've got a pack here of Morgan Burkhardt and Miles Crabb. We've got a farther back pack of Broken Overstreet. And we have another pack farther behind of O-ring and Wozencraft. So just a lot of, I guess that's a strategy that's going to play dividends in this race. Just drivers pulling away right now. The field is spread out a little bit, so it's not really the big long train that I was expecting. I was going to break out my harmonica and try and mimic a train. Actually, this is a little bit of a train here.
Right here.
Yep.
And it's Murchison in the orange, black, and white, number 17. John Vogel in that Carrier air conditioning, number 4. Justin Huffman directly behind, and then we've got Murphy Nichols in the white, number 5, and Andrew Benna in the number 71 machine as well. Andrew Benna, just talking about somebody who needs Red Bull. He was working the SCCA Solo Nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska this past week, and I think he just finally got out of there on Sunday after about 10 days on the tarmac out at that airfield. Here's we watch this battle right now, and again, this is the battle for 8th, all coming into turn number 9 now.
Unfortunately, I was going to make a joke about it being a train here, but if you ever have a train where 2 cars are going side by side, I think something has gone desperately wrong with the train ride that you're on. They're nearly going 3 wide in the small little chute there. Between, we've had a derailment here, you could say. Drivers going side by side, but they've evened out a little bit. I was going to say, I believe it was Murchison up ahead, so I was going to say, all aboard the Murchison train.
Oh, so there you go. Oh my gosh.
That'll be.
He brings sound effects.
I'm not a good musician, never was. My dad has described me as tone deaf on multiple occasions, and so I'll try and hold off on the harmonica because I don't want to ruin the other viewers' ears. But right now, You can hear the ears of Megan Overstreet. She's lifting off a little bit, balancing that throttle. It's not just pinned all the way to the floor of the Spec Racer Ford. She is moderating that throttle a little bit to try and just stay behind, stay in the draft of Brooke up ahead. So that's some very smart tactics we'll see now. I think a lot of these drivers,
discretion there.
Yeah, a lot of these drivers are saving up their stuff right now, and I think they're going to probably wait until probably about the 15-minute mark as we approach the final 2.5 laps-ish of this race. I think that'll be when a lot of these drivers start to go on a full-out assault to try and grab some spots.
Yeah, and you know, as you mentioned, Skip Rock, a Spec Miata driver in real life, just came away a couple of weeks ago with a couple of wins down at the not virtual, at the real Barber Motorsports Park, and I think he and Megan know that it would be nice to fight for third, but it would be a heck of a lot nicer to fight for the lead, and the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they don't swap positions, if they don't fight this early on in the races. We're not even halfway through this 20-minute race yet, and try to work together to get up to our leaders there, Burkhardt and Crabb. And it looked like, although it did look like Overstreet was about to drive right through the back of Skip Brock's machine going through turn 9 there. She was carrying a little bit more speed.
Yeah, so we're going to get a chance to see what kind of lap times these drivers are doing. The last lap, the other two drivers up ahead of them of Burkhardt and Crabb were very much quicker. They're saying 2:04.5s. I believe they're switching positions now. I believe they might have gone side by side.
Yep.
Coming through one, Crabb is now taking the lead. And even then, on that lap, they were still pulling 2:04.5s, while the drivers behind them were pulling 2:05.6s. So they're, even though they are working together there, Brock and Overstreet are working together at this stage of the race, they are not really closing that gap up. If anything, these two drivers are pulling away, but if they continue to battle like they did just there going into turn 1, and it looks like they're very close to battling going into the inner loop, they might be battling for long enough to the point where they might get sucked up into this battle. But one thing that that just popped into my head is I wonder if these swaps for position have anything to do with the water temperatures in this car, because we just saw Miles Crabb and Morgan Burkhardt swap, and now we just saw Megan Overstreet and Skip Rock swap as well. So I think that could be the reason why some of these drivers are having pseudo battles, you could call it.
You'll notice in these Spec Racer Fords here at Ron that there's a very, very narrow little postal slot right at the front of the car. And I've just seen there Jamison Huffman, who started off, I believe, on row number 3 with his father, Justin, has just put the car off and taken his car back to the pits. Let's take a look and see what happened to him as he was with Beans Forster going into the bus stop and got very, very loose. And, well, he didn't get to the wall. And he certainly would have flat spotted the tires, but apparently something happened there that he took the tow back to the pit lane, and he's going to try and get some repairs and probably come back out. But so these Spec Racer Fords, they've got a very, very small little slot in the front of the car for their air inlet. They do have a radiator up at the front of the car, and at least in real life, very common. There's a good look at it. If you run up and bounce off of the little cage that protects the differential on these cars, or in some cases it can happen from going over curbing, it can bend up that little slot and really affect the ability for these cars to cool. But certainly, if you're going to stay in the draft, and Burkhardt was, we can see here, he's just sitting back in the draft. There's not a lot of cool air going to that radiator, and there's even a little bit of a bump.
We're seeing some bump drafting here. Morgan Burkhardt is locked to the back of Miles Crabb's car. It's like we're watching an Animal Planet documentary here. Watch now as a territorial Spec Racer Ford attempts to scare another Spec Racer Ford out of its territory. It's very close here with these drivers. I was expecting some bump drafting here, so we see it a little bit in real life. We see it here as well, but as you said, it's you really have to be careful with that stuff. You can't really just slam into the car ahead of you. Obviously, that would be definitely an incident-causing moment if you hit them too hard and in the wrong spot. But as you said, the front end, the small little gap you have to get that cool air into these engines is very tiny. It's, as you said, it's like the slot you have in a post box now. So it's very small little window, so hopefully these drivers are trying to avoid damage, but really I think the bump drafting might be the key to success, so it's really just a managing game with that.
All right, so we're still watching Burkhardt and Crab, not really make any moves on one another, staying in that draft. And I think, Ron, they are trying, even though they have been running almost anywhere between a half a second and a full second there, as Justin Huffman runs a little bit wide going into turn 8, losing a position. Even though they've been increasing that lead that they have over Overstreet and Brock, I think the fear there is if they start fighting this early, and we still have about 7.5 minutes remaining, they will start to fall back into the clutches of those two. And so they're just kind of holding station, swapping on the front straight every once in a while. But I would suspect probably we're on lap 7 right now, probably somewhere around lap 9. And you're going to see that fight start to pick up.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be it, because, I mean, we're looking, as I think I said earlier in the broadcast, around minute 15 was when I would expect to see some more dogfighting all throughout the field, and we're coming up to that point right now. I believe in about a lap's time we'll be at that point, so I think we might see some battles start to flare up all up and down the field. This might be the big one to watch, though, between Morgan and Miles. The two M's here battling very close, just very, very tight. It's so close, but I mean, they are bump drafting through the corners, which is absolute insanity. You won't really see too much of that in real life, but these drivers don't really have a fear of death here in the sim racing world, so they are pushing each other for all they've got. And I think maybe it's just me, but I think both of these drivers aren't really thinking too much of the cars behind. I think they're just locked in their own world, trying to stay close to each other. I'm sure both of them are pushing quite a lot this time, and really the cars behind are a bit of an afterthought. But I will say this, these drivers have not pulled away this lap. The gap has remained pretty much the same, around 5 seconds throughout all this lap. So considering how a few laps ago they were a few tenths quicker, we might see a bit of pace fade here from Crab and Burkhardt.
All right, as they come out of turn 9, 2 corners remaining, and they will be starting lap number 8 here, as we are now just under 3/4 of the way through this 20-minute race. Remember, next up is going to be Spec Miata, so definitely stick around with us after this first race of the evening. We've got more great action here from Watkins Glen International coming up. And now side by side, it is Megan Overstreet and Skip Brock. That is exactly how it looked coming up through the S's a lap earlier, where Skip Brock Jr. had taken over 3rd position, but Megan Overstreet now gets by. But I think we're going to see once again where Brock will be able to draft right up to the back of the 044 machine as they head up the hill here. And I think that whole that thought of working together and fighting it out for the lead with Crab and Burkhardt, that's gone out the window as reality has set in now, as they're currently working lap number 8.
I think at this stage, with the gap they have, I mean, at this point is extended a little past 5 seconds. It's still definitely manageable in a car with a lot more power, but in these cars where the drift is so dependent, that's really just a completely insurmountable gap with how little time we have in this race. I mean, we still have about 6 minutes left. Sorry, not 6 minutes. You can tell I'm great at math. We still got about 4 minutes left here, so we're coming up on the 16-minute mark of this 20-minute race. So not a whole lot of time for these drivers. So I think a 5-second gap with 4 minutes left would still be pretty hard, but with these cars, it's basically impossible to close that gap. So I think they've escaped what my friend Kara would call Delulu land, and they've realized that they're not really going to fight for the win in this race. So I think at this stage, they're just going to try and focus on battling each other, setting each other up correctly here, and trying to grab the final podium spot from each other. That'll be a good battle to watch, along with the battle up towards the front, along with the battle that we're seeing now between Murchison and Huffman here, very close here. Huffman had that mistake a few laps ago. That might have been a sympathy spin there after the fate of his family there.
That's right. So we're seeing a good battle here between Murchison and Huffman. This is the battle for 12th, just ahead We're a little bit further ahead. We've got Murphy Nichols in the white 5 and Trenton Kramer in the 444 machine. They are in very close proximity as well. That is the battle for 9th. And actually, it looks like they have now started to spread out just a little bit. But you'll see here a lot of these drivers pairing off. And this is now Trenton Kramer and Beans Forster. Remember, Forster was our pole sitter this evening, and he now sits back in 11th position, trying to make up a little bit of ground. This has not been the opening of the season that Beans Forster wanted. Beans, a former Spec Racer Ford Ray Esports Racing League champion, I believe in season number 7. And he is just sitting right in, locked behind the 444 machine.
440 does not look good at the front. The damage it has on the front clip of that, it looks like a giant grabbed the front of that car and just pinched it in a little bit. So you can see a little bit of the front tires there. So I think that might not play too well there for Kramer. He might lose that final top 10 position to Forster, who is definitely looking to have some form of redemption here in this race after dropping back really like a rock throughout this race. I'm sure he's looking for redemption. As I say that, I believe, just went for the move on Kramer, so now he moves up into the top 10.
Into 10th, exactly. All right, so coming through turn number 8 now is we saw Crab and Burkhardt still in lockstep. Megan Overstreet leading Skip Brock in the battle for the last podium position. When these two pairs of drivers come across the start-finish line, they will see the white flag in the air for the final lap here at 3.5 mile 11 turn Watkins Glen International, as they now come onto the front straight about 5.5 seconds back from our leaders. There you can see white flag in the air. Thank you, Barney, the starter, as they come down through the 90 through turn 1. Miles Crabb is going to be your leader going into this final lap. Let's see if Morgan Burkhardt has anything for him, as they are going to head up through the S's. They're going to compress, and Burkhardt already taking a couple of looks there as Crabb's going to move over driver's right to protect. Burkhardt's going to try to sweep around driver's left, and contact there, a little bit of contact, not much, as they now head down towards the bus stop. Burkhardt's able to draft by the 131 machine, and he's going to take the lead coming into the bus stop for the last time.
I don't think it's over yet. I think Crab is definitely going to try and save up his stuff here and maybe go for a last lap assault, maybe going into turn 9, maybe turn 10, and possibly turn 11 for all we know, but I think it's not over yet. It's definitely not a surefire win there for Morgan Burkhardt, but that was still a textbook move there. You saw him pull out a little bit to try and save up his stuff and get a fantastic run as he came through the S's and went onto that back stretch and was able to get the move done before they went on the brakes going into the inner loop. So that was a fantastic move there from Burkhardt, who now grabs the lead, but I believe it's not over yet. Still very close between these drivers, but I think Crab might be a little bit farther behind. You can see a little bit of about a car length gap there between these two drivers. We'll see if Crab can close that up in the braking zones, but we'll have to see what Crab can do here.
All right, well, let's take a look now in that battle for the last podium position. Skip Rock Jr., who had gotten around Megan Overstreet. Oh, and squeezes Overstreet going down into turn number 8. Overstreet definitely not up alongside. She loses the front end of that car, and that is going to open things up for Skip Brock Jr. to give him what should be an easy run to the bronze, as Morgan Burkhardt leads Miles Crabb to turn 11. They are now side by side coming through the final corner. Did Crabb make the move too early? It's going to be a drag race to the checkered flag, and as they come to the finish line, taking the win by 6/1000ths of a second, Miles Crabb is your winner tonight here at Watkins Glen in Spec Racer Ford. Morgan Burkhardt will finish second. Skip Brock Jr. will finish third. Ethan O-Ring comes across the line, beats Megan Overstreet to fourth. Overstreet comes in fifth. Andrew Wozencroft will finish in sixth. John Vogel in the number 4 machine, he will finish in seventh. Murphy Nichols will finish eighth. Beans Forster gets around Andrew Benna on the last lap. He will finish in ninth. Benna will round out your top 10 as our racers, well, they have a little bit of fun there to wrap things up here in Spec Racer Ford, and hopefully we will see some of our podium finishers here in just a moment as Burkhardt now comes to a stop. Let's do this. He's sitting in the waiting room for us. Ron, let's bring in your first interview of the evening. Miles Crabb, your winner in Spec Racer Ford.
Let's do that. Miles Crabb, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. We saw an awesome finish there with you and Morgan. How's the race?
That was extremely, extremely fun. That me and Morgan were nose to tail for the entire race, and we're so comfortable. This is me. I don't know. Morgan may think I'm crazy, but we're so comfortable racing around each other. I don't think my heart rate was over, like resting heart rate for the entire race until the last lap when it was go time. And it was just great, kind of hot lapping with him, frankly. And I don't know what happened to everybody else. I knew I wanted to be at least third or better through the first couple laps, just to not be in any mess. And apparently something happened. Great race, good fair. I was afraid that Morgan actually hurt his car when he nailed the wall like 5 laps in. But no, he was still good. And I kind of let him have the bus stop because he got one heck of a run with the draft, and I knew there were a couple places I could make a dive and try to make it work. And I actually tried to do it into the toe of the boot and just didn't quite get to this inside, and then I was able to do it in the last corner. And thank goodness they model side drafting in this thing, so it could be like, what was it, 2019 VIR runoffs, that the finish was about. That's like right. That. So it was
exactly right.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that question. What was going through your mind once Morgan pulled off that move going into the bus stop? Because as you mentioned, you felt confident that you could get past him, but what was going through your head that moment?
Don't mess up, number one, and just try to get power down. I knew where he was laying back a little bit and trying to get a run, and I knew it could do, I don't know the numbers here, the last left. I knew I was doing it better than he was. I could just roll more speed. I don't know why, just something in the setup. So I knew I could do what I was going to do, and I really expected to have to go around his outside. But he gave me the inside, and I sent it in super deep. Didn't door him. I haven't actually watched the replay myself. I need to go back and see if he cut me room, which we had plenty of room, and it was clean, and it was just, where's my next opportunity? Is this a good one? And then on the last corner, I was like, I want to win this race, and sent it.
Well, I'll tell you, that was an absolutely awesome finish to watch. Thank you very much for joining us in the booth. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to?
Yeah, thanks to Ray and everybody who sets, or Stevie, sorry, I said his last name, not his first name. Stevie and everybody and all the admins that set this stuff up. Thank y'all for broadcasting, and hi Mom, hi Dad, they should be watching. And Bobo too, she may be still awake. But thank y'all.
All right, there you go, Miles Crabb.
Mr. Ray.
Sorry, Miles Crabb, your winner tonight in Spec Racer Ford. Quickly here before we take a break, let's talk to Morgan Burkhardt, finishing second tonight in Spec Racer Ford.
Morgan, thank you very much for joining us. Long time no hear from you, man. How's the race?
It was not bad. I had a good time with Miles, just kind of trying to. We got pretty lucky. We were able to bump away from the field pretty early on, but I was really just trying to play. He went through about halfway through, and then I was just like, you know what? I'll just kind of sit back here, kind of control it a little bit. And I was thinking about making my move into coming out of the boot back onto the cup course on the final lap, but I would rather play defense than offense when it comes to the final, couple corners of a lap. So I made the move into the bus stop, and I should have covered into the final corner, but he made a real nice move up the inside and kind of just got the side draft and drag race down to the line and ended up winning.
Yeah, that was an absolutely action-packed finish. That was very close. I was kind of biting my teeth looking at that because I was thinking when Crabb went for the move there, I think that you had I was thinking that you had the momentum coming around the outside to win that drag race. But unfortunately for you, finish a very admirable second. That was, as you mentioned, y'all were just kind of hot lapping throughout most of that race. It was like y'all were having a chill-out barbecue. Just how how easy is it in this car just to kind of just sit back, relax, and then wait until the end of this race just to kind of have that one last lap assault? Is that really the way to attack it in these races?
Basically, yeah. Once you get 2 cars out in front, it's difficult mentally to kind of just tell yourself, don't fight them, don't try and go for the lead, just kind of sit back here. We're gonna be faster like this, anyways. But physically, it's difficult because you can't see anything going into corners. But this was really good practice for the runoffs in the real world coming up pretty soon. Just following people and getting used to driving through corners blind.
There you go. Gotta get the practice in somehow. Morgan, thanks a lot for joining us, my friend. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to or shout out?
I'd like to thank you and Greg. It's been a while since I talked to you, Ron. For anybody, I don't.
Oh, I think we lost
There we
Morgan
go.
on
He's
West
back.
Virginia internet.
Oh.
There he is.
Oh,
Now you're
we're back. Okay. All right. But yeah, I wanted to thank to Greg and Ron, and for a little fun fact about myself and Ron. I bought his go-kart in 2017. I ran autocross with it, so we got a little bit of history, and it's good to talk to you again, dude.
It's very nice. We I shared some of those stories earlier on the broadcast, so hopefully I didn't embarrass you too bad with that. Thanks for joining us in the booth, man. Very good race, even though you did finish second. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, there you go, Morgan Burkhardt, who's going to be up till like 11:30 tonight, listening to hear what you said about it. All right, thanks so much, Morgan, for joining us, and good luck in the next race. Everybody, let's take a quick little break. And that allows us to get reset here. And when we come back, it is going to be a qualifying and 20-minute battle to the checkered flag for round number 1 of Spec Miata here at Season 10 of the Esports Racing League from Watkins Glen International. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS. Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International in the Ray Esports Racing League season number 10. I'm Greg Ginsburg along with Ron Munz, and after our first race of the evening, and look, just like a couple thousandths of a second separating our winners, Ron, I'm certainly looking forward to Spec Miata here, where we are actually qualifying now, just wrapping up. And Morgan Burkhardt, who finished second in Spec Racer, well, he takes provisional pole. We've got a couple drivers still on track here, like Miles Crabb. We'll see, our winner in the Spec Racer Fords, whether or not he can jump up from sixth, where he currently stands in qualifying, and maybe he makes that last lap gasp like Beans Forster did in Spec Racer Ford to move up to the front row.
Yeah, that was an absolutely just bonsai. That was a kamikaze mission there from Forrester there to set that fantastic lap in the Spec Racer Ford race earlier tonight. I think that race definitely set some very high expectations. I'm not sure if we will exceed them. We could match them. We'll just have to wait and see how this race plays out. But I think regardless of the expectations we have coming in, I think we'll have a very good race here. The Spec Racer Fords and the Spec Miatas are tiny bit different, obviously. The Spec Racer Fords and Miatas are different body shape wise, different power wise, but I still think we'll put on some very good racing. I think we might have some close packs, might have a little bit of train action, might have some wall riding action there from Crab there coming through the final corner. That was a very interesting interpretation of track limit, trying to use a little bit of a bend in the safer barrier to maybe try and use a little bit more room on the road. But unfortunately for him, I think he just lost time from that instead of gained it.
Yeah, he did. And so Crab does not improve from sixth position. Megan Overstreet, who I think is still on a valid last lap here, she is trying to improve upon 10th. And so Megan, we saw her in the Spec Racer Fords, and we saw how things just didn't end up all that well for her in that last lap battle with Miles Crab. But Megan has been a Spec Racer Ford and Formula Car specialist for the past number of years. She's just in the last 2 seasons here in the Ray Esports Racing League started to jump into the tin tops, like the Global MX-5 Cup car, the Spec Miata, like the Volkswagen Jetta even. And she has done quite well. Might have had a little brush with the wall there on the last lap as she comes down the front straight. Let's see if she can improve from 10th. And as she comes across the line, no, she had an off track on that last lap. I think she did have a little brush with the wall, and she's going to wrap things up here in qualifying in 10th. So, Ron, let's run down the starting order for race number 2 here tonight for the Ray Sports Racing League.
Alrighty, here we go. So we have Morgan Burkhart starting from the pole position, about over 0.3 of a second quicker than Murphy Nichols in P2, and then we have Beans Forrester in P3, put in that fantastic qualifying for the Spec Racer Ford race, and has another decent qualifying here for the Mazda race later this evening. So we have him starting in P3 with Wozencroft alongside him in the 4th position. Then we have Trevor Roy in P5, Miles Crabb in P6. Then we have Will Robbins in P7, Ethan Oring in P8, Lewis Lockshire in P9, Megan Overstreet in P10, rounding out your top 10. And then looking through the rest of the field, you have Kyle Robertson in P11, Skip Brock Jr. in P12, and then you have Joshua Justice, Charlie Vaccaro in 13th and 14th respectively. That's Trenton Kramer, Andre Jameson, and then we have John Vogel, Mark Sherman, Rich Green, Wayne Buttermore, and then Effinger rounding out your field. So the 2 last drivers on the grid did not set a qualifying time, but still a very close field, all things considered. Besides some of the outliers farther towards the back, it's a very tight field, so I think that will lead to some tight racing as well.
All right, so we're waiting on Morgan Burkhart, our pole sitter, to join the field. We've got a gap left open for him there at the moment on the inside. There we go, as Josh slides over to that inside lane, and we're also waiting on Charles Vaccaro, scheduled to start 14th. There's a gap for him waiting in the field as well. And there you go, Morgan Burkhart now checks in, and still waiting on Vaccaro. Vaccaro now slots in as well. We have our entire 21 car field as the pace car now about to roll off and take them for a tour of 3.5 mile and 11 turn Watkins Glen International. But Ron, before we get going with this 20-minute race, before the green flag comes out, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor for tonight's second race, and that is Grassroots Motorsports Magazine. Built for the true sports car enthusiast, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission, and that is to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it's online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print or in person, the racers and builders, the car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports, take you behind the scenes and show you how to make your car better. Along the way, they'll give you a taste of everything else this hobby has to offer, from 1,000 horsepower track monsters to cool street cars built in driveways. They also maintain a collection of staff-built project cars because hands-on technical articles, they aren't typed behind a desk, they're scribbled down in the garage. To not only read but become part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. All right, so Ron here as the field here, not seeing a lot of tire scrub, but this is going to be something that's interesting to see here, and I haven't heard any feedback about this. Of course, we've only been set up for season 4 now for a couple of days, but one of the big challenges in the MX-5 Cup cars, the Spec Miatas, has been how treacherous they seem to be on the opening lap, or actually even opening 2 laps due to cold tires. And you know, it is quite warm here at Watkins Glen. Reasonably warm, only 90 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature and about 80 degrees ambient air temperature. But you know, I can look back at many rounds last season where those tires really wreaked havoc on the field. One race at Mid-Ohio seems to come straight to mind, where I think the first six drivers all found themselves towards the back of the field, and not because any of them got into one another. It's because, well, they all just slid off the track surface on the opening lap. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out here as the green flag flies.
Well, coming from my background of the Radical Racing Challenge, also here on Apex Racing TV, which if you want to see any of the other racing action here on Apex Racing TV, you know, to hit the subscribe button and do all that stuff to see all the kind of racing here. But from the Radical broadcast I've done throughout most of my time here at Apex, the biggest thing with that series is getting the tires up to temperature. It'll take probably about 3 or 4 laps for the tires to really be in a good operating window, so that might play over a little bit here in the MX-5s. But I will say, at a track like this, it's it'll be interesting to see if these drivers can get the tires sufficiently lit up from the start-finish straightaway to by the time they get into the inner loop, because you do have some very long sweeping corners, but you also have a very long flat-out blast and a very long straight blast that might cool those tires also. We'll just have to wait and see what happens in a few moments' time.
All right, pace car is on the pit lane, turning the field over to Morgan Burkhardt, our pole sitter. He's got Murphy Nichols to his left, and green flag is in the air. And we just had one of these machines move all the way over driver's right, and I think that was Andre Jameson in that white machine who is starting to move up through the field in that white car, but he runs wide coming through the 90. He's gonna get a 1X there for running wide. And so as quickly as he made up ground, he now falls further back in the field. But the field now making their way up through the S's. It's Burkhardt, Nichols, Beans Forrester sticks in third with Andrew Wozencroft and Miles Crabb. We just saw right in the middle of the pack there. They're side by side. There's Skip Brock in that yellow and blue machine, and directly behind him, and they were side by side for a while, Lewis Lockshine, Joaquin Effinger, Kyle Robinson. As speaking of side by side, our lead pair, Murphy Nichols, Morgan Burkhardt, coming through the inner loop, and Burkhardt with the inside position has the lead briefly here with Beans Forster, Ethan O-Ring directly behind, and we're still 2 by 2 as we head down into the chute. As Burkhardt, there you go, as he has the rear end step out on him coming through turn 6 through the chute, and he's going to lose a number of positions now, dropping all the way from the lead back into 7th position there, Ron, and I think there might be our answer about the tires.
That was a very costly mistake there from Morgan, but he was very lucky to keep it out of the barrier. We mentioned earlier on this broadcast how this track has a very street circuit-like feel with how close the barriers are to the track. You only have probably about 6 feet in some spots, maybe even less between the edge of the track and the barriers. So to have a big moment like that Morgan had through that corner, going through turn 6, and keep it out of the barriers is definitely a very good thing for him. He is still in 5th, but certainly is probably going to be kicking himself after that quick little mistake there that's going to cost him dearly. But still, a lot of drivers going side by side. The field is ironed out a little bit. They're still going side by side up towards the front here. We've got a nice little pack here forming between O-Ring, Nichols, and Burkhardt involved in this as well. Burkhardt is trying to cut through the field like a hot knife through butter, probably trying to drive with a little bit of vitriol after that small little mistake that cost him dearly. But still, field spreading out a little bit. They're going single file, but though you have a few drivers farther in the back going side by side. Still very exciting stuff here. Still very close racing.
All right, so Morgan Burkhardt now, he's managed to move up from 7th up into 4th, directly behind Murphy Nichols, who started on the front row, now sitting in 3rd. But Beans Forster, who was our pole sitter in race 1 tonight and fell all the way back through the field in the opening laps, he's got the early advantage here as we come into the bus stop for the second time. Ethan O-Ring in that black number 62 directly behind. Then Burkhardt now slices ahead of Murphy Nichols, moves back up into 3rd position, and where he is, it doesn't look like that incident just a lap ago. Coming up to the corner, coming up to the scene of the crime, looks like Burkhardt has certainly recovered as O-Ring goes down to the inside to try and one, to defend against Burkhardt, but also to come underneath Beans Forster. Can't get it done. Does Burkhardt look to the inside going into the toe? Yes, he does. He's going to try to slice right underneath O-Ring there as they come up the hill, and O-Ring gets a better run from the outside, Ron.
That was extremely close there. I believe they actually made contact coming through the toe, so we'll have to see how they do coming through the heel, the second part of the boot on this track as a foot works. You know, I'm not really a good doctor. I don't really know anything medical-wise, but I know enough. Whatever the I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. It's I don't know the good medical terminology, but I think everyone knows the anatomy of a foot there. So going through the heel, I was expecting some battling there, but
don't worry.
Morgan
Even if you're
behind.
not a doctor, you play one on TV here. Let's jump over to the replay here of Morgan. This was from lap 1 going into the chute, turn number 6, and the rear end just walks out on him. Lots of opposite lock, and you said it. He just keeps it right off the wall there. Great recovery there, and Morgan now battling it out for the lead once again as we jump back to the live action here. And there we go. It's Beans Forster with Morgan Burkhardt directly behind, both of them working on Ethan Oring going up through the S's. And Burkhardt is able to slot ahead of the number 62 machine, and he's going to try to come underneath Beans Forster as they come through turn 5 and start to, or through turn 4 and start to make the run to the bus stop. And here we go, Ron. It's 4 wide for the briefest of moments as Murphy Nichols wants to be part of the show as well. And they come into the bus stop. Do they all make it out in one piece? Yes, they do. But Ethan Oring takes over the lead.
Ethan O-Ring also got a big bump there from Morgan Burkhardt when they went into the outer loop there, but that was extremely close. Living it up the Ray Esports style, going 4 wide, going down the back straightaway, going into the inner loop, and they still managed to get through cleanly. And Ethan O-Ring and Morgan Burkhardt have been battling quite hard now, and now it looks like they're going to battle for the lead here. They were very close to making contact when Morgan was on the inside. They made contact again, and O-Ring is very sideways, but he manages to hold on to it as a small little quarter spin and nearly loses it to the back of, I believe that was Nichols, who did like a boot scoon boogie there trying to bump him out of the way. So he's going to lose even more time there as the front two of Morgan Burkhardt and Beans Forster start to pull away.
All right, so that's now going to move Miles Crabb, who started off in 6th position. It's going to move him up into 3rd in that red number 131 machine. Burkhardt, though, back to the lead, and it is he and Beans Forster. But as you can see here, and please don't break out the harmonica, we have a very long train here of Miatas, as we expect in almost every single Spec Miata race here, running all the way back. Megan Overstreet sitting back in 9th position directly behind Andrew Wozencroft, and she has Lewis Lockshine and Will Robbins and Charles Vaccaro directly behind her. A 12, actually close to a 15-car train here, all with these drivers in a position for the lead. Now with Beans Forster getting back around Morgan Burkhardt for the moment. They are side by side coming up through the S's with Miles Crabb looking for a way through, as is Ethan O-Ring, who is now recovered from that little tap going through turn number 8, or probably turn 7, through the toe of the boot. And O-Ring now drafts right back up into the lead as they turn in for the bus stop.
Oh, just got a small little glimpse there of, now O-Ring has a big moment coming through there. That's going to be really close on the rejoin. That's contact there. Oh, boy, that's Crabb involved. That's a massive pile up there. That's a big accident.
Like
a lot of drivers involved.
Wozencroft involved as well, a little bit further back in the field. But O-Ring, who went into the bus stop just so hot, was not able to control the speed, and the rejoin was definitely problematic. That moves Burkhardt back up to the lead. Skip Brock Jr. in the white and yellow number 68 machine. Again, a Spec Miata racer in real life. He now moves up in the 2nd, picks up 10 positions, much like race number 1, where he started off, I think, 13th and he finished in 3rd. He's now up in the 2nd. Megan Overstreet now up into 3rd, and I'm wondering if Overstreet is starting to have flashbacks of that last lap battle with Skip Brock right now. Lewis Lockshine in the 4th. Will Robbins now loses a position to Murphy Nichols, as Nichols now moves back up into 5th position. But wow, you know, and Murphy Nichols goes around, loses the rear end, coming through turn number 9 and bounces off the wall and bounces into the wall, and he is going to fall all the way back through the field. Murphy Nichols, who started in 2nd position tonight, he now finds him back in 16th position, and lots of drivers having some issues there. It looks like O-Ring, who had already had damage, was trying to limp his car home. He had some issues there. Rich Green falls back as well. And big changes here for a number of drivers, Ron.
Even the iRacing mechanics that are running on probably a 6-pack of Red Bull couldn't even fix all the cars. That was, I don't even know how many cars were involved in accidents there. Yeah, had like 3 cars there towards the end of the lap. We're gonna get a replay here. See Ethan O-Ring just going for the send of a lifetime. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out. And oh yeah, being and banging there. Morgan Burkhardt was about a few inches away from getting collected in that. That's probably about 5 or 6 cars there, as is just scattered debris all over the place. Just so many parts off of these MX-5 Cup cars.
Yeah, let's
you could
take
probably
a
make
look
your
at
own
another
MX-5
shot
Cup
here.
car.
Let's take a look at another shot here. And, I should mention that Forster kind of saw O-Ring coming around and moved over to driver's left, had a little bit of a tap with Burkhardt that pushed him back over. And there's, from Andrew Wozencroft's view, as he now is brawless or noseless and could not get that car stopped and ends up right back into the wall and ends his night. It looks like both Wozencroft and Andre Jameson now finished up for the evening. But let's jump back to live action here, where Morgan Burkhardt has about a 4-car length advantage over Skip Brock Jr. as we're just now halfway through this 20-minute race. Megan Overstreet currently running a very close 3rd position, and there now is Lewis Lockshine in the orange and white number 124 machine. So a big fight now for 2nd position, and much like we were discussing, Ron, in that first race, are these 3 drivers going to work together to try to draft up to Morgan Burkhardt? That last time by, Burkhardt was about 0.4 of a second off of the drivers directly behind him.
I think at this point in the race, and right now halfway through, I think for bragging rights' sake, actually, I say that we're over halfway through. We're coming up on 9 minutes left in this race 2 tonight. I think it might be every man or woman for his or herself, because I think at this point these drivers might be feeling a little bit selfish here. I think Megan Overstreet might not try and help Brock after the moments that they had throughout the race, but now we've got Lockshine there. We've got 3-car battle here. They might go 3 wide coming into the inner loop. Lockshine was very close to getting involved in that incident that we saw a few laps ago. He was probably about, it had to have been centimeters away from getting collected in that, but he's put together a very good drive and now gets past Brock, who loses a bunch of spots now, and he will now slot into the final podium positions. But it's not over yet as those drivers continue to go side by side coming through the outer loop. There's some very close stuff here. A lot of the drivers battling really hard. Some of them may have damage, others may not. And speaking of damage, I was going to say right before that massive pile up and just total chaos a few laps ago ensued, that as we were riding on board with, I forget who it was, honestly, as they went past Morgan Burkhardt a few laps ago, you could see that the front end of his MX-5 is damaged a little bit. So I feel like with these cars, that might play a little bit of an effect. It's like he's dragging a parachute down that straightaway. So that might play a little bit of a role into why he's losing a bit of time.
Yeah, and we have to take a look at that. I mean, obviously, it doesn't help that he doesn't have the help of a draft partner there, and I think that's another reason why we're seeing Overstreet, Lockshine, and Brock move up on him. Also, should point out a very good, a very wise move there by Lewis Lockshine, who helped push Megan Overstreet past Skip Brock Jr., and they were able to use that momentum to get by. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something very similar on the next lap as they are starting to close up, but a little bit further back in the pack. We are looking right now at Charles Vaccaro in that red and blue number 13 machine, with Kyle Robertson in the green number 15 directly ahead. And we'll see now if they can move up and make some ground up and get up to Miles Crabb. Crabb, who had been as high as 3rd at one point, now finds himself back in 8th position after that big conflagration just a lap ago. Trenton Kramer makes up 9 spots, started off in 15th position. He now finds himself in 6th.
Just chaos at this stage of the race. That's all I can think. I'm getting flashbacks to the ARL GT3 broadcast that I was doing earlier here on Apex, which was just absolute carnage up and down the field. So that big moment of chaos, and still some very close racing. You got Train farther behind. Don't worry, Greg. I have the harmonica not in hand's reach. So thankfully for you, and thankfully for any of the viewers, they won't be having their eardrums blown up by my terrible music skills. So we still got a lot of action up and down the field. We've got trains forming a little bit, and even though these cars have a bit more power than the Spec Racer Fords, that slipstream is still very, very important. But despite not having that slipstream, Morgan Burkhardt is actually starting to pull away, coming up about 1 1/4 seconds now ahead, actually over 1 1/4 second, 1 3/4 seconds, my apologies, over this battle between Megan Overstreet and Lockshire. It's just
Lockshine,
very
yes.
Lockshine. I'm screwing up the names. It's very late. Usually I go to sleep around this time, so I think I need to get my glasses prescription changed, and maybe maybe. Yeah, maybe I'll need some Red Bull like the mechanics needed to fix all these cars. I think that might be my trick for the rest of the season.
Skip Brock Jr. runs very wide coming out of turn number 8 here. And so on the last lap, Megan Overstreet had actually made up a couple of tenths on Burkhardt. We'll see if she and Lockshine can continue to push up here as we now have 5 minutes remaining in this 20-minute race. It is Burkhardt, your leader. He's got about a 2-second advantage right now as the 3 behind start to close things down. Let's take a look this time by Burkhardt. Puts in a 2:07, almost a 2:08 flat, very consistent, only a couple of hundredths of a second off of his previous lap time. Megan Overstreet, though, loses 3/10 that last time by, so they are starting to drop a little bit out of contention here, and certainly out of Burkhardt's draft. He just needs for 5 minutes to be able to continue that current pace. But a little bit further back in the field, if we could take a look here, maybe if we can move back to Trenton Kramer and Josh Justice here. Josh, battle for 5th and 6th as they are currently nose to tail, and you can see drafting up right behind them, Miles Crabb, Kyle Robertson, Will Robbins, and Charles Vaccaro, all in a row here coming through the inner loop. And this is a great fight right now for 5th position, just past that lead group of 4 cars here in a good typical Spec Miata fight.
Just a lot of drivers really close. It's not, I'm scared to call it a train because I don't have the instinct to grab the harmonica again, but it is really a train. It's actually, no, we'll use a different word this time. We'll call it a peloton. We'll reference the Tour de France instead of American travel. So it's we've got a peloton forming of MX-5 Cup cars going through the boot right now in that small little short stretch between the toe and the heel here. He'll be close here between Crabb, who's looking to try and get the move done on Justice, going into the heel there, and is still keeping side by side, but he'll be forced and kind of hung out to dry and just drops back, and now he's at risk of losing a position here to Robertson, who goes really deep into that corner. That might have been very close to contact between those two drivers as they went in through turn 9. But right now it's Crabb holding on to that position, but I'm sure he won't want to be in that spot for very long.
Yeah, that was a real late move by Robertson in that green number 15 coming down into turn number 8, and luckily we had Crabb give him room, much like Justice had given just enough space to Crabb the previous corner. Here as we continue to watch this battle now coming out of the 90, and we'll see if these drivers can draft up to the 444 machine. They did not have anything for them coming into the inner loop the last time by, but it looks like this time they may start to push off to the left, and there you go, moving left. Josh Justice in the number 99 machine. He gets past the 444, and it's just like watching a NASCAR race here, Ron. Nobody wants to help that 444 car. They all tried moving around drivers left, and when Crabb realized that he couldn't get past them, he moved to the inside. We'll see if Crabb gets a slowdown penalty. He took a lot of grass there on the exit of the bus stop.
Oh, Robertson just had a massive slide coming through the outer loop. I believe he might have had some help there from Vaccaro behind, but he managed to hold on to that position. Those two continue to battle hard, but right now we're looking at the battle up towards the front of the field. The battle, it's not really been a battle. It's more just been these drivers clocking down the laps and running out the clock to reach the end of this race. But I think as the final, I believe this time by, we will be starting the final laps of these drivers. Will be taking the white flag this time by. So I think we might see this battle here between Brock Overstreet and Lockshine start to heat up in the not too distant future. I think these drivers are all trying to battle really hard. I'm sure Lockshine wants to break into the podium positions. I'm sure Brock and Overstreet still remember what they were doing in the Spec Racer Ford race earlier today, so that'll be a good one to follow as Morgan Burkhardt looks to have a surefire win.
And it puts Overstreet in the same position she was in the previous race. Overstreet, who had led the last 3 laps, she's now given up second position to Skip Brock Jr. as the white flag is in the air. Thank you, Barney, here. And so it is Morgan Burkhardt now with about a little bit under a 4-second advantage over Skip Brock Jr. Overstreet taking a little look to the inside as they come down into the 90 with Lockshine behind. We'll see here if, we saw this on the opening laps where Lockshine and Overstreet were able to team up together coming up through the S's and push past the 68 of Skip Brock Jr. Whether they decide to do it again as Brock moves to driver's right once again to protect the inside, and already Overstreet is by, and there we go one more time, Ron. Looks like Lockshine and Overstreet working together to move Skip Brock Jr. back to 4th.
It's the bump drafting. It's just trying to lock those bumpers together and pushing as hard as they can. It's very hair-raising if you're the driver getting pushed, but it's really the only way to power ahead. What's the point of having just one MX-5 engine when you could have two pushing each other? So that's definitely the logic there that pushes Megan Overstreet up into the podium positions and pushes Skip Brock farther behind. That's tough for him, but I'm sure he'll try and look for a way to get past those two in the final few corners. We saw Morgan Burkhardt get past in the final few corners in the final corner, actually, in the Spec Racer Ford race, but he will probably not be at risk of losing that P1 spot this time around unless something major happens. But I think the battle to keep our eyes on will be between Megan Overstreet, Lockshine, and Brock. This will be extremely close. I'm sure Brock looked like he was going to go for the move. There's Lockshine going for the move down the inside, going into the heel there. That's very, very tight there. Some interesting interpretation of track limits from Overstreet there, and Brock as well. They're going side by side coming through turn 9.
Well, one of the things here in iRacing is, although you can't go, and going off, Skip Brock Jr. spins the car coming out of turn number 9, impacts the wall. We'll have then Josh Justice in the number 99 machine coming up alongside, but now in the battle for second, side by side, going into the final corner, we've got Megan Overstreet and Lewis Lockshine side by side. Lockshine rubs the wall as Morgan Burkhardt takes the win here in race number 2. Let's take a look at that fight for the second here, and coming across the line, finishing second, Megan Overstreet takes the second position. Lewis Lockshine will finish 3rd. Josh Justice will come home in 4th with Murphy Nichols, who actually that wasn't Nichols, I'm sorry, that was Trenton Kramer finishing behind Josh Justice in 5th. And then we had Kyle Robertson in the 15 car finishing 6th, then Crabb, then Robbins, then Vaccaro, and Skip Brock Jr., who was in that battle for second all the way up onto the last lap. He will finish back in 10th.
That is absolute heartbreak there. That is such a disappointment. I'm sure Brock will be kicking himself tonight. That was just a very unfortunate mistake, but also a very easy mistake. I've definitely had my fair share of spins coming out of that corner, so it's not the hardest area to screw up on. Unfortunately for Skip Brock Jr., that's going to cost him dearly. He drops from P4 down to P10, only a few corners away from the checkered flag.
All right, well, tell you what here, Ron, typically we keep our interviews down to the top 2 finishers, but, since it's almost midnight anyhow, no, it's almost 10:30. Let's do this. I've got sitting in the green room already Lewis Lockshine, driver of the number 124 car, and I've got Megan Overstreet. Let's talk to both of them, and we'll see if Morgan will come and speak to us as well. But let's start off with Lewis Lockshine, finishing 3rd tonight in Spec Miata.
Lewis, that was a very exciting race from your end, I'm sure. How's the race from your end?
Exciting, very exciting. I was able to survive the start, and then when the calamity happened in front, I was further enough back where I could just kind of coast on through the middle, and then follow Megan through. And then after that point, I was just trying to catch Morgan Burkhardt, but he was a little too fast for us. So at that point, once I knew we were safe for between me, Megan, and Skip, then we could just battle for second. And oh, that was a fun battle. That was very fun.
That was just getting back to the near miss that you had there, avoiding that massive calamity a few laps into this race. We got an overhead view of that. It might have been our camera angle, but you were probably centimeters away from getting collected in that. What was going through your head when you saw that crash happen, just absolute chaos happen ahead of you? What was going through your head?
Be like Jeff Gordon, find the gap, and then continue on. That was it.
Just Orca breaks, find the gap, and just send it. The seas parted ways. The seas parted for you. It was Must have been a just insane view from your end, seeing that happen right in front of your windscreen. So I'll ask you one last question here. You were involved in that fantastic battle all throughout this race. How was it? How was the battle? What was your tactics coming through it?
It was a fun battle. That was honestly some of the best I've had in this league and since I've joined. But as for tactics, I was trying to push Megan up to Morgan Burkhardt to get his draft, but that wasn't working. Then when Skip had a run on me, I just let him through to see what he would do, and he managed to pass me and Megan. At that point, I knew Megan. I bump drafted Megan past Skip a couple laps before, so I'm like, okay, if we can do it again, that'll be perfect. And that's what happened. Play out the exact same way, going up the hill. Megan moved to the left, I moved behind her, pushed her through, and then Skip fell in behind us. So I tried to pass her on the last corner. It's a little too wide. I just scraped the wall, just affected my exit speed out to the finish line. That was a fun battle.
Yeah, that was a very fun battle to watch. I'm sure it was very fun for you in the driver's seat. So thank you very much for joining us. You end up P3 tonight. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to?
Thanks to CV Ray for posting on the league, and thanks to everyone who's broadcasting. I hope that was a good show we put on for you guys.
Oh, that was a fantastic show from start to finish. Even the Spec Racer Ford race earlier tonight was absolutely fantastic to watch. Lois, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you throughout the rest of the season.
Have a good one. Thank you.
All right, there you go, everybody. Lewis Lockshine finishing third tonight in Spec Miata. Now let's move over to our second place finisher, getting a little redemption after that Spec Racer Ford race early on. It's Megan Overstreet.
Megan Overstreet, thank you very much for joining us. Had a very exciting race from your end. You're involved in that fantastic battle all throughout it. How's the race?
Well, it was pretty crazy. I did not expect a podium after starting the race in 10th.
I managed to make up 8 spots, which I believe is one of the highest. Actually, it's the second highest of the drivers in that race. Actually, third. You can tell I'm great with numbers. So third, most amount of positions gained. That was still a fantastic race. And I asked your fellow driver involved in that battle, Lewis Lockshine, I'll ask you as well. When you saw that calamity coming through the outer loop very early on in this race, what was going through your head?
Slow down and go for where you think they're not going to be. And I got very, very lucky to do that.
That was there was centimeters separating a lot of you drivers from getting caught up in that. So that was very close for you, very close for your fellow battlee, you could call it, with Lewis Lockshine there. Take us through the battle that you two had towards the end of this race.
Oh, it was really fun. We were racing each other very, very hard, but very clean. He was giving me some good bump drafts going down the back straight, which helped a whole lot. We were trying to catch up to Morgan, but I just could not go quicker than he was going.
That was a very good race. We appreciate your insight there, Megan. Thank you very much for joining us. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to?
Yeah, y'all for doing the broadcast, Stevie for putting the league on, Grass Paddock Motorsports for sponsoring the MX-5s, Spec Racer Sports for the SRFs, and my parents. Thank y'all so much.
There you go, Megan. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you throughout the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, there you go, everybody. Megan Overstreet finishing second tonight here in Spec Miata. And for the second time this evening, let's talk to Morgan Burkhardt from the Parallel Racing Group, your winner tonight in Spec Miata.
Welcome back to the commentary booth, Morgan. We might need to have a seat for you permanently here in the commentary booth with 2 podiums in one night. So how was this Mazda race from you?
It was crazy. The first couple laps, I mean, we had an agreement between a bunch of us to just kind of go for it, and we had a ton of fun just kind of early on, just swapping spots back and forth all the time. And then unfortunately 3 wide into the carousel didn't quite work, and there was a little bit of argy-bargy. Took out a lot of I don't even know how many people. I just know that there were some people there, and then we went into the boot and they weren't. So I got pretty lucky that I avoided that, and then kind of just was able to run my own race and check out from there.
I'll tell you, that accident was a field clear. I think we counted 5 or 6 drivers that got caught up in that accident, so that was a absolute doozy of an accident. And we saw pretty pretty exciting moment from you very early on. I'm sure this is a bit of bad memories, but on lap 1 when you had that big moment coming through turn 6 and kept it out of the wall by inches, what was going through your head when that happened?
Well, I kind of made an assumption that the rear of the car was as hot as the front of the car, and I turned into the corner, and the rear started to want to lead. So I was just trying to hold on the entire time, not really trying to dump the clutch, put in too much throttle so it'll just go around instantly. It's just I put so much opposite lock into the car trying to keep it out of the wall, but I got pretty lucky that everybody kind of made their way around me and didn't collect me, and I didn't collect myself into the wall. So
we got a good view of that when we saw the onboard, just you sawing at the wheel and probably trying to do everything you could to keep it out of the barrier. Unfortunately for you, you kept it out of the barrier and brought it home in P1. So I would ask you about how the rest of the race went, but after that very close call you had there with that big calamity coming through the outer loop and the incident on lap 1, it was really a quiet race from your end. So just not really much else to say. So I'll end this by saying anyone you'd like to give thanks to.
I'd like to thank my parents for making all this possible and giving me the supplies that I need. So big shout out to them.
There you go, Morgan. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you throughout the rest of the season.
Okay.
All right, there you go. Morgan Burkhardt, second podium this evening. Finished second in Spec Racer Fords, takes the win in Spec Miata. And so, Ron, let's start to wrap things up here. And we'll take a look at what we have coming up. Full schedule there. There we go. There is our race results from race number 2. And we'll take a look at what we've got coming up on the schedule here. Next week, September 19th, we're going to be at Virginia International Raceway. Of course, it is going to be the first outing for those touring cars, and the MX-5s will return. The Spec Racer Fords will have the week off. And then we are going to be taking a week off, and that is so that many of our racers and some of our announcers can attend the Sports Car Club of America's National Championship runoffs at Virginia International Raceway. But we will return at my what I call heaven on earth, Summit Point Raceway. That's going to be Tuesday night, October 3rd. And you don't want to miss that. Going to have the touring cars once again in Spec Racer 4, but we're going to be at some great tracks this season. Laguna Seca, Circuit of the Americas, of course, Tim Cox's and Ron's favorite elephant track, Road Atlanta. Going to be at Lime Rock Park this season, which I'm really looking forward to, running the Bull Ring, and also Barber Motorsports Park. It's going to be a great season number 10, and great to have you along with us this season, Ron.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be here, and after the brilliant racing that we had in both the Mazdas and the Fords, I think we've got a lot more exciting racing action ahead of us for season 10 here of the Ray Esports Racing League.
All right, very, very good. And so, as Ron mentioned earlier, if you liked what you saw here tonight, go ahead and give us a big thumbs up on YouTube. Morgan Burkhardt likes to say, smash it, demolish it, jump up and down on it, and give us that thumbs up, and subscribe to Apex Racing TV if you haven't done so already. We've got some of the best virtual motorsports action around the clock from around the world here on Apex. And so for Ron Mons, for Josh Wilkie, I'm Greg Ginsburg, and we'll see you next Tuesday night from Heaven on Earth, Virginia International Raceway. Have a great week, everybody.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.